And that's why scarcity matters.
Yeah.
But if you're going to transition a debt-based system that has a collateral issue to a system that's based on pristine collateral, the most pristine collateral the world has ever seen in history, many could argue, you blend the two together, and that's how you transition. And as Bitcoin sucks in more and more value, it becomes larger and larger portion of the structure until basically it's completely the old system.
The opinions expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the opinion of Archetype Wealth Partners or its advisors. The mention of different asset types or securities do not constitute a recommendation for our clients. If you have any questions about the content of this podcast, please contact your advisor. Welcome to Navigating Bitcoin's Noise, the show where we cut through the clutter and bring you the clearest insights on Bitcoin. I'm your host, Kane McGukin, and today I'm joined by Maryland Hodl, Bitcoin researcher, transition analyst, and one of the sharper minds in this space. In this episode, we get into why Bitcoin's absolute scarcity is the only mechanism capable of absorbing the collapse of the debt-based monetary system, how the Fed-Treasury dynamic is quietly being restructured, and why the clock is ticking faster than most people realize, with AI injecting deflation straight into the heart of the system. We dig into the sovereign flywheel, the collateral problem at the core of our debt spiral, and what a top-down Bitcoin pivot might actually look like. If you want a first principles breakdown of where the monetary system is cracking, why Bitcoin's scarcity is the thesis that matters most right now, and how these two paradigm shifts, money and AI, are converging at exactly the same moment in history, then this episode is for you. Here's a fair warning. We jumped straight into the deep end on this one. No formal intro, no warm-up, we just started talking. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. So, artificial intelligence. So this was from JP Morgan's Guide to the Markets. There's only been 3 periods in U.S. history, basically 1880s forward, where we've introduced a major, world-altering, life-altering technology or innovation, and we've been this unproductive. So 1% or less was World War I, so we got central banking, the technologies that came out of the 20, and then we rebuilt the industrial class and the management systems that powered all the entities. The end of the Great Depression, which you got the end of World War II and the Bretton Woods system, kind of all that in here. And then you had the release of the personal computer in 1980. And so after that, you got major booms where we became, so all this fear of AI is going to take the AI apocalypse. I don't believe in it. It's going to take over everybody's job and nobody's going to work. No, we're just going to get new skills and do different jobs based on whatever comes next. And so when we got to a very productive country and society, 3 to 4% range, we got all the luxuries. We got electricity, automobile, aviation, and the internet was through here. It wasn't quite, but and the housing bubble. So we got the McMansion bubble. So when life got easy, we got easier stuff, and that was kind of decline. So I would just argue when I look at this, it's uber positive to me because we're unproductive and we get this game-changing technology.
Yeah, that makes, you could imagine that productivity could potentially go up to 10 or 12%, right? And that would be considered kind of like the age of abundance, potentially. And I think that's what we're on the cusp of. And we almost need it, but we don't have manufacturing here. I think we can retool, but that's going to take a considerable amount of capital from the government to backstop and to drive, because it's not just the government, or it's not just the data centers that we need. It's the infrastructure for the power grid and so forth. And once that's all into place, we have an aging boomer population. And I don't know if the medicine benefits that come from AI over the next 5 or 10 years is going to reverse aging. It's possible, but at some point, the boomers will pass and let off to the next generation. But we're going to need there's not enough people, even if we open up the borders for immigration to let everybody in.
Mhm.
Basically, kind of retool from that perspective. So we're dependent. We need the robotics at this point, but it's not just us. It's China needs the same thing. Um, they have a huge demographic, uh, aged boomer kind of
Yeah, they're
associated,
worse than we are.
right? Um, you kind of already start to see on the unraveling that's happening in Japan. So,
Yep.
um, yeah, we're just at a really interesting time because we have two paradigms that are that bottom tick that you had. We have two paradigms happening because the industrial age monetary system is dying, and it's um it's showing it's just not cracks anymore in the dam. I mean, there is active water spouts coming out of the dam at this point.
Yeah.
I looked today, this morning. I mean, the bond market looked like it was puking all over the place. Yeah,
Mhm.
10-year. I think I looked this morning, it was 456, and
And
now
that thing
it's
should run. I mean, just
460.
targets again, not investment advice since we're on here, but I mean, technically, I look at technicals all the time. I mean, price tells you everything you know before the headlines.
Hmm.
Um, 5 was the target. It's just kind of where that thing should drift to. And you see that goes back. I think it was maybe 2013 as being just kind of a critical level. So I would expect you got Warsh coming in. Warsh's background is systems, engineering new systems. We need a new financial system. You've got to bake in Bitcoin. He's had pro Bitcoin comments. It can help liquidity move around the system. So, you could see that 5 region being defended. Now that I'm not saying that it has to go there. It's just if you kind of look on that, you see inflation is ticking back up. You can make a case that you go there and see what happens. But I think that's over the next 5 years, we just kind of yo-yo up and down, just like we did in the '60s and '70s. Because you got the sun, you got the statecraft, the geopolitical, you've got the monetary change, which is more akin to a 1913 or 1944. But you have all those things that really um, just cause chaos across all different assets and confusion and capital controls and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and what are your thoughts around yield curve control?
They put out I mean, I posted a bunch of times. They put out a paper in February of 2020 from the New York Fed. And the whole paper, it was 25 pages, might have been 40, but I think it was like 20 something. And it was like, this is how we did it in the 1940s to kick off the next wave, which is the 50s, 60s, the growth post World War II. And effectively it was all the steps that they were kind of already doing and they've done since 2020. So they issued the paper, told us what they were going to do, and then now we're in kind of the middle to back end of that. I think back then it took like 7, 8 years, and so we're in that back half. And but what I think the
But
benefit
didn't
of
they have to
having
merge? Didn't they have to merge the Fed and the Treasury together, or the Treasury
so
took power
yeah,
over the
so
Fed?
that's one thing. If you look at Japan, where it was kind of a process of a couple of decades, and it kind of came to a head in '87 and '90, and sort of created their version of depression. Was when you and I believe you kind of look at it, we sort of helped that situation. Um, when basically the Federal Reserve become or one single entity takes power away from the Treasury, which is supposed to be kind of the checks and balances. That's what caused all those Asian countries to default. In the Asian currency crisis in '97, it was because it effectively became one entity that did whatever they wanted to do in regards to the money and had nobody checking their calls. So, on the one hand, it's nice to not have politicians in there, but when you don't have that and you don't have a system of checks and balances, it tends to go badly. That was what was a little bit concerning in the fall when Trump, it may have been last summer, but last summer and fall when Trump was kind of pressing on Powell really hard, and he says, "I want true Fed independence." Well, you have an independent Fed, but like true independence means nobody else can kind of come in and step in and you know call you off. And so historically, that has not been a good thing.
Do we have an independent Fed?
No.
And
um,
I would actually make the argument that that's where we're heading. Um, is I find it humorous how after every conversation that Powell has made, the dot plots change, right? And
yeah.
they're polarized because they're swinging one way or the other. There's no in between really. I think right now when I last looked or heard, it was one raise by the end of the year, not a cut, but
Mhm.
a raise, and then three cuts, I think, next year.
Yep. Yep.
Um, and I'm like, this is just asinine. I'm like, the math doesn't math. Nothing adds up. The debt just continues to expand. I mean, we just crossed 39 trillion. So what's the game plan? I mean, interest expense is, I don't know. I don't think it's gotten to 1.5 trillion a year yet, but we're getting really close. I mean, this isn't helping. Um, we're basically a banana republic. We're
Mhm.
in a debt spiral already. And on top of that, we have all this money we have to backstop and continue to spend domestically, not just to shore up the Western Hemisphere, but to basically build out all this infrastructure for AI and the energy grid. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
another $7 trillion potentially. Not all government, but so how do you do that? And first things first is you need to take control of the Fed, and I think Walsh is going in there. I believe he is Trump's guy. The Fed is not independent. Walsh is going in there on behalf of Trump to neuter the Fed, and
Mhm.
I think he's going to bring it and pull it back underneath Treasury's control, and at least from they're not calling the shots, so they're not going to be an inhibitor to things that could be happening. And honestly, we have what, $8 trillion that has to be refinanced, so almost 25% of current out Treasury outstandings needs to be refinanced by the end of the year. I think. How are we going to
I
do
hadn't
that?
looked at the numbers, but I mean the math, like you said, the math doesn't math. And I think Warsh is so if you think about it, Michael Every touches on this, and it's the kind of how Russia fell. And forgot the name of it, Priorca or whatever. And so we're in this like freedom capitalist society.
Yep.
But if you look at, and he doesn't touch on this, this is my personal opinion. If you look at capitalism in the late stages, it really becomes communism because fewer and fewer hands have the money and fewer hands call the shots. So if you think about like a small town and um, one or two or three families run it and they run the courthouses and they run the businesses. So they hire all the people, they kind of set the schedules. And then, eventually they run out of stuff to buy and own. So they move over and take over the next town. And so it
Yep.
just spreads. And so when you do that for 30, 40, 50 years, 80 years, kind of get like a few families that own and run most of the United States. And we're kind of there. And so when you kind of look at the framing that he puts in the context is like America's kind of hit this point where just the free willy freedom, free market doesn't exactly work anymore because it leads to the same place. But then, you've got China over here that's uber communist directing state involvement into everything. Well, if you look
Hmm.
at the last year, that's really what we've done. But then if you look at kind of coming out of the 20s, 30s, and 40s, that's what we did to build America is get everybody unified, going in the same direction. And so there's kind of a push and pull there where it takes the right amount of balance of a government controlled, organized, here's the path, let's get all the money going to chips, let's get all the, brains going to physics and the things that are going to run the rails of the next century
Yep.
and kind of get, you know, bring everybody in, but not go so far where you're kind of running China or Russia's version. You still have that free and private independence there.
Well, then you overlay AI, and the whole dynamic starts to shift.
Yep.
I've been, I've commented, and I want to go back, not right now, but I want to make sure we revisit kind of the Treasury Fed dynamic and what that process could look like. because I'm interested in your takes. But if we look at it from the standpoint politically,
Mhm.
I think we get through a midterm election. Um, I mean, Trump's really running out of time to at least show extremely well. I mean, they're trying to do the redistricting and so forth, and I think that could have significant play. I don't even know if that redistricting goes into effect for this midterm. Um, I'm sure there might be some stipulations that takes a year or two before it falls into place. Um, I don't think we have 2028 elections. Just
Really?
because, yeah, I mean, I'm going to be, and yeah, that's very controversial, right? But I'm
I
just
mean, somebody will be right.
right, and
You
I'm taking the 1 or 2% given the historical context, right? Like
What's Poly Market say?
logically play it out. Um, Look who Trump has behind him, which is more the technocrats,
Yep, yep.
right? Um, if and the left can't really doesn't seem to be putting come up with a consistent game plan. But say that they were, and maybe it's the Madami, like Democratic Socialists or whatever, and that starts picking up more steam, and maybe New York isn't a disaster for the next 2 years.
And people say, "Oh, hey, it wasn't that bad. Let's try it."
The divide starts growing more
Yep,
economically.
yep.
And that's voters. Trump continues to do what he's doing, which is just his management style or leading style is very agitative,
Mhm.
and turns people off. I mean, I voted for him, but I have to tell you, I mean, there's points where I'm shaking my fist at the screen, going, "What the hell are you doing right now?" Right? Like, especially what he did over Easter.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah. That was rough.
it. Even the diehard Trump people, which I'm not one of them, are like,
Well, I think if you break it down and just kind of step back because it is a polarizing topic, and I agree with everything you just said. Um, People think tariffs don't work. That's how the country was founded. They do
"Yep,
work. They
agreed."
ring fence. When you're unproductive, which America is, when you're unproductive and you don't have an industrial base, you don't produce anything. Like financial engineering is not a productive endeavor. Like I'm in
Nope.
the business, it's just not. But when you use tariffs, they ring fence so that other nations can't just pick you apart like they have been. And that's what Alexander Hamilton did. It worked then. McKinley did it. It worked then. It does not work when the famous example that everybody wants to use in the 30s, when you put them in when everything's going good and you don't have we didn't have an industrial production problem then.
Right.
We had financial problems, which tariffs don't work when you have financial problems. So that worked. Um, Many of the other tactics he's put into place have worked. Um, the going back and effectively winning back supply chains from China, which was via supply chains and the yuan peg, was how they were controlling global liquidity, which sort of got us on the wrong side of the fence in the first place. All those things are working, so it's hard to like, other than you just don't like Trump, which understandable, like an easy target to say, can the guy just not, say stuff? Um, the plan and the things that Besant has executed on have worked. And I think the worst deal might work just as well.
Yeah. So you everything is polarizing, and the problem is we have these. China has a 50-year plan, right?
Hmm.
And they can do that because they maintain control.
Yeah. And we don't want to go that far
Agreed.
controlling. Yeah.
Right. But what I'm saying is, and maybe we do have elections, but the elections are just in nameplate only. Like we're
Yeah.
going through the
Yeah. Yeah.
motions.
Yeah.
I mean, you can even make the argument, have we had free elections for the last 30 years or going back to Kennedy, right?
Right.
Or have they already been kind of pre ordained as to who the next president was going to be? I don't know. I don't want to spend too much time on that. But
Yep.
the thought process is, in order for us to execute on this plan, if we are doing a major shift and we have two paradigms that are happening and the debt-based system isn't going to survive potentially
Hmm.
with the
It
deflationary,
mathematically can't.
right?
Yeah.
To do that, you need to get everybody on the same page, to your point, like going back to the 40s. You can't do that effectively, strategically, if you have the ability to potentially lose power.
Right.
You become a failed state.
Yep.
If the other side gets control and doesn't have a plan or continuation of the plan that is in place right now, everything falls apart.
Well, to piggyback on that, Luke Groman just did a podcast,
He's great, by the way.
the Golden Palisades or something like that, and
I
in there,
disagree on his gold takes, but he's great.
well, he's just so far out, and then he gets like into a little bit of rant land about he's running the math, and it's always just doom, 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 and it's like, okay, just slow down. You got everything right now, just let it play out.
Right.
So I don't know. That's just my opinion, but he talks about, he said, hey, the yuan's getting bid up and China's bond yields are going down, which means the bonds are getting bid up. Meanwhile, you mentioned Banana Republic, the United States, the leader of the world, their bond yields are going through the roof. The dollar's going down, which is telling you people are getting out of both of them, right? And conversely, the market is telling you people are bidding up those other things. Well, that's telling you that China has won over many more partners in the world that we have. So our
Yep.
partners or former partners are selling treasuries, diversifying away from dollars because of the whole SWIFT deal with Russia and other things. Maybe they get
Yep.
offended by Trump or whatever. Um,
Well, we're
Meanwhile,
sort of a going concern. If you want to
yeah,
look at it from a financial perspective,
correct.
we're
Yeah.
going concerned. So
Yeah, I mean, look at it like a normal, like a company. Going concern is a real issue, or look at it like a household. Okay, you've got 3 times the debt that you do the assets. Are you going to be
yeah,
able to eat next year? I don't know. Right? Can you roll another credit card? Uh,
who's going to
so
buy it?
yeah,
Who's going to be buying it? So
so the market in that particular instance is telling you, regardless of what the headline says, is
it's a
telling you
regime change.
what the participants are doing. So
Yep.
your only option is to go to China, just like Trump did, and work out a plan to work together. You take this half, we'll take that half. That's what the Mar-a-Lago Accord says. The national security document says it. Um, all the information around stable coins, it kind of
Yeah.
puts a US version of that yuan peg in play, to help stabilize the system. And then you bring in a guy whose background is systems to implement a new system, who's told you he's favorable to Bitcoin, he's favorable to AI, he sees nothing but positive coming out of that. Now, yes, there'll be bumps, but this Bitcoin is an asset. It doesn't have to take over the world like a Bitcoin would tell you, or Bitcoiner would tell you. It doesn't have to like make the dollar go to zero and all that stuff. But it's the first time an asset can suck up that much value
Because of the scarcity.
and still function, has the scarcity and has the divisibility to make people's life better, rather than units that are based on supplying more and more and more, which we know the Keynesian part of economics is at some point it's just guaranteed to fail.
Yeah. And that's where I spent a lot of time. Honestly, the scarcity is the only thing that matters
Yeah.
currently at this stage of the game because that's what gives it the ability to suck up that value.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, Now we can sit here and debate and go back and forth whether um, scarcity is actually in play right now or the derivative markets,
Yeah.
suppressed the scarcity and inflated
Yeah.
it.
And they do.
Um,
I mean,
I-
that was to put it, to step back. That's how you and I kind of got
yeah,
connected. Was your article? When was that? 6, 7 months ago?
the sovereign flywheel.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
the big one that was like 2 million
Oh,
views.
yeah. The gambit, Trump's gambit.
Yeah.
Yeah, back in
Yeah.
November.
Where you were explaining that battle, and I was like, hey, this is 100% what I believe. You wrote it perfectly. Where it's the old guard, the JP Morgans of the world suppressing the price. You could clearly see it in Bitcoin. Hey, we removed Jane Street. What happened to Bitcoin? It went up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
And I think that was deliberate. I mean, I have a grander theory in a series I've been writing about what the transition would look like if we were going to do it. Kind of, I think I was coining it because I was messing with the LLMs last week. I was like, what do you call my type of like um, intellectual endeavor that I'm going through here? And it's like, well, you're basically a
Life.
transit. Yeah, right. Life. It's like you're basically a transition analyst. And I was like, all right, well, I'll take that. I was like, I don't know if there's any value to it, but it's the puzzle I've chosen to try to solve for.
Well, I
And
think that's important. Not to stop you, but because of the way an exponential monetary system, a Keynesian monetary system pushes us to focus on what can I do for money? What can I do for money? I need more money. I need more money. We lose track of like what our purpose of being here is.
yeah,
And maybe your purpose was to figure out how to be the best transition analyst there is. But you don't get to do that if you're constantly running around like, I need more money. I need more money.
well, as before we got on camera, it was 5 years. I basically got out of my previous role and ended up living my life for 5 years and had the fortunate, I was fortunate to be able to do that. Got married, remarried, and had my son. But all I did for 5 years outside of doing some consulting stuff was study this asset.
Mhm.
It captured me, it sucked me in like it does to all of us. When you
Yep.
truly understand the significance of what it is. And it's just trying to figure out because on one side you have I put out something a couple weeks ago. I've been messing with it off and on for like 6 or 7 months, but take the tech adoption curve and then I overlaid Myers-Briggs. And then you can actually overlay on top of that the S curve. Um, and there's actually you can pull a lot of weight from it. Um, but if I didn't take the time, I was drawn into it because I'm an ENTJ, which basically it's outside of the innovators. So it's the second phase, early adopters, I guess. And so I was naturally drawn to trying to understand what this tech is. But if I didn't take the time to actually focus on it, I wouldn't have like been able to find out. I didn't know where my place was going to be in the beginning at all,
Mhm.
outside of just investing in it. But I knew there was something more significant here. And I'm like, I don't know where I fit, but I'm just going to keep on digging until I kind of put some pieces together and we'll see where it falls. And I'm still in that process. But what I did know was it might have started with cyberpunks and that grassroots effort. And then you have kind of those that believe that Bitcoin's the answer, but nobody knows how we get from point A to point B,
Yeah.
right? And we've lived it up to a point, and we have a bunch of tea leaves, and we can look back in hindsight 2020 and say, all right, I've seen this, this, and this happen. But you almost have to take a step back and kind of zoom out to say, geez, a lot's happened. But, and that's where I'm coming from. I'm like, if Bitcoin went from cyberpunk to, you can even say in 2020, it really started to hit kind of the come to
That's where
market.
mainstream kind
Right.
of, yeah,
Wall Street started
grandmothers
taking
started
interest.
buying it.
Yep.
Wall Street's like, we got to get this thing on the books.
And so how do we take it from here to the next level and enter into kind of a Bitcoin standard at some point potentially? I don't think the dollar is going away anytime soon,
No.
but I think that there is a way where you can use Bitcoin scarcity to basically eat up all the inflation. Um, and that ultimately, I think Bitcoin's one more point is if you look at Swan put out something 2020, 21, 22. I don't know if it was their idea, but it was two back-to-back S curves.
Mhm.
And the first one was as a store of value. And then it was offset. And the next one was more as a unit of account. And
Yep.
I believe in that wholeheartedly that Bitcoin's going to win adoption through store of value, primarily because of the scarcity aspect and being restructured into basically everything. Um, and that ultimately allows for incentive realignment and so forth. And that's what I've written a lot. A lot of the basis of the stuff I've been writing is basically Trojan horses the system through incentive realignment.
Yeah. And we'll step back in a second to the how to bridge gap, but to put to put it in perspective, I probably said this 100 times on the podcast, so sorry for people that have heard it before. But Bitcoin is the first asset that's kind of married into the like truly into the getting integrated into the system that can do both the store of value and medium of exchange.
Right.
You know, land and gold could do the store of value. They really couldn't do the exchange because of the time that it takes for those transactions and the money to change hands. But like
It's cumbersome.
yeah, you instantaneously can go from gold to land to Bitcoin to yuan to yen to euros to dollars, like just boom. Um, and stocks were a form, but still it was a 4-day settle, 3-day settle. Now it's a 1-day settle. Treasuries similar. You get money in this system. It takes several days to get it out into the other. So you know when you think about it, Bitcoin was the first to be able to well, first to really be able to do it at scale because if you look at the
To
yuan and
merge both together.
yeah, because the yuan and renminbi are actually exactly the same. One of them is the economic system, and the other one is the transaction unit, but they just don't function like when you talk about Bitcoin, you don't think about big B, the network, and little b. It's just
Yep.
always really everybody's kind of using that unit. So it's not, I guess, technically not the first, but the first one to be usable at scale. And I think that's how we bridge the gap because we're still sitting in this weird land where it's like you're either a Bitcoiner or you're in TradFi, and then you got Sailor and the Bitcoin Treasury companies trying to do like some version of TradFi, which really don't solve the problem because it's not a system. So it is a good transition, but that's where I
Right.
think over the next few years when Warsh comes in, it's going to be really interesting to see because his background is systems. And I think
Yeah.
we might see something truly Bitcoin system oriented where it's using true Bitcoin, not wrapping Bitcoin the way that treasury companies are.
Well, I'll push back a little bit because I think the all right. So Peter Dunworth, um,
Mhm.
I enjoy a lot of his concepts, and last year,
Australia is
yeah, New
yeah,
Zealand,
yeah, yeah.
um, and he said, we're in a debt-based system, right?
Right.
That's me talking, but he's like, we don't have a debt problem, we have a collateral problem,
We don't have a money problem. Who needs more money?
right? Well,
I mean, when I say money, I mean like we realistically don't need more units of something.
right,
We got to get it back to that basis, like a
and
debit based system.
and that's why scarcity matters.
Yeah.
But if you're going to transition a debt-based system that has a collateral issue to a system that's based on pristine collateral, the
Mhm.
most pristine collateral the world has ever seen in history. Many could argue you blend the two together, and that's how you transition. And as Bitcoin sucks in more and more value, it becomes larger and larger portion
Yep.
of the structure until basically it's completely um, the old system. Like the the sovereign flywheel the thesis that I put together, put out last September. I mean, if you play that out, um, because it keeps the dollar in place, it just allows the dollar to the treasury and
It
dollar
just
system
allows
to
the
expand.
dollar to become like the euro did, where it just slowly.
Yeah, you're debasing fiat liabilities against absolute scarcity is ultimately what it's doing because you have the stablecoins liquidity layer, you have strategic Bitcoin reserve that sits on the asset side of the balance sheet, and then you need a way to kind of connect it all together. So then you're embedding Bitcoin in with the treasuries and gives you a new mechanism to kind of start this flywheel
Yep.
effect. And ultimately, what you're doing is you're expanding the money supply on the fiat side, but ultimately it's leading to driving value, inflating away the fiat liability. Um, and your asset side starts to drastically increase because of the scarcity.
Yep.
But if you can do that, um, if you play it out, you keep the dollars in play as a unit of account for some significant time. Over time, the society will naturally progress to the harder money, and they'll want to transact in Bitcoin. But while it's going through the store of value adoption, you don't want to unload the Bitcoin because it's going up at a CAGR of 50, 60,
40,
70,
yes,
80%, right?
42. Yeah.
Um, but if you play that out, what is a stable coin, a US dollar stable coin ultimately become? That's when you can start getting stat dollar parity. And then as the system continues to transition over to a more Bitcoin, doesn't mean dollars go away. They just become, you know,
Well, yeah, I
cents
think,
or less than a cent. And then maybe that is like the micro payments that AI is using for machineries at some point.
yeah.
Like I could see that play out. Not for 30, 40, 50
Well,
years,
if
but
you got self-driving Teslas and Ubers, right? You just put a QR code on it. The thing drives itself to I mean, this is one of the earliest, like, hey, this is a legit use case.
yeah.
If we get there technologically, the car drives itself. It drives people around. It knows when it needs to go to the shop because it has sensors. It knows what the problem is because it has sensors, and it effectively just needs a QR code that you scan to. You can call it up from anywhere with the app, and it could ride 24/7.
Well, we'll
Um,
get to a point where you tell AI and AI will do it all for you.
yeah,
You have your bot that'll just do everything you need. It won't even ask you questions anymore. It already know what you want.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, I think our problem at that point will be purpose, right? Because
purpose.
we humans, we still have to have purpose, and I promise, at least I believe, we're not put here to do nothing. We're not put here to like sit on the beach and suck on martinis all day, or
Yeah,
not
I've
martinis,
talked.
but
Uh,
pina coladas.
now I've talked to like C Hodl. I talk to him probably a couple times a week. His big focus has been what's the higher purpose of humanity, and it
Mhm.
comes down to consciousness, right? And
Yep.
ultimately, what does that endeavor look like? Because if you look at the fiat system and the economic structure that we're currently in, we're in a rat race, right?
Yeah.
And
It's
um,
removing the exponential
humanity,
fiat system is removing purpose,
it removes
and
the humanity from us. Yeah.
that's where if you read the book Scale by Jeffrey West, and it walks through I think I sent that to you a while back, but
Yep.
it walks through the biological working and the inner workings of the math and the power law, and it mathematically makes time go faster.
Yep.
And so um I've always thought to myself, man, Christmas got here, like it's already June, like we
The older
just
you get,
had
the
it.
faster it speeds. Yep.
Yeah. um
Well, and if you fix Bitcoin and AI, might give us the ability to fix that. And if we fix that, what is our higher purpose? And then you can go down a whole bunch of rabbit holes, right? It's difficult to look through the paradigm when we're on this
mhm.
side of it,
Yeah,
and see what the world and the universe would look like at that point. It's like you could see things advance very quickly,
yeah.
and then our purpose changes, right?
Hmm.
Um, and what is that purpose?
And
Everyone,
I think I've been noticing that more, like, and so I agree, like that is a trend that's coming up, and I think that unfortunately, if we keep going down this path and the rat race stays, and AI doesn't help remove that, then we'll cross that bridge, and I don't think it'll be a pretty one, like because
no, it's a fourth turning. We go into social unrest and destruction, and
yeah,
society rips itself apart until we start over again.
yeah, yeah, it's
Um,
almost like, do you have another event where dinosaurs got wiped off the earth and everything something like that.
I mean, there's theories that Mars blew itself up through nuclear holocaust, right? Um, it's, it's funny. Like I, I wasn't really political up until like honestly until I studied Bitcoin. Um, David Collins made said a statement years ago that I heard that I kind of ripped onto. It was like, if you want to understand economics, you have to understand politics. And it was
That's true.
because we become so polarized,
Hmm.
it becomes so much easier. from that lens. So I've had to take an interest in politics, trying to remain objective about it, right? I have my own personal biases, but I have to remain objective about it in order to understand the economic incentives behind everything.
Hmm.
Because that before you, until you can understand that or try to at least make sense of it, because none of us really understand it. Um, in my opinion, I would say TradFi has no clue because they still believe that the current system works. They
Right.
don't think there's any fault there. And if you look at it through a Bitcoin lens, like I think we all do, you can quickly identify the issues and where the cracks are, and realize that this isn't going to last forever. Now, I think a lot of people are waking up to the fact that they understand AI is going to change a lot of things, but then you have to overlay the economic um, mechanics of the current system, and you realize the shelf life is running out of time. It's not going to. We only have 5 years max, maybe 10 years, because the AI is growing exponentially and deflation is being injected into the heart of the system more and more. And what was the one thing central bankers were all afraid of back in the Great Depression? It's deflation,
Hmm.
right? Um,
And it's with deflation in an inflationary system is bad. Deflation in a system that doesn't have technology and communications and all that capable of keeping up with it is bad. But I mean, I think we probably agree at this point, deflation is the thing that will fix all the stuff that's broken because it will make us all take more time. It will make us all focus on things. It will make our, it will make our money last longer, right? Because if you're getting better and better internet, just to use something simple,
yep,
better and better internet, but you're not buying the newest and latest, it should be cheaper. But
fixes our lives.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It
But
fixes
it,
our lives, but it doesn't keep the
mhm,
government afloat.
yep.
Doesn't keep the current system.
And
And
that's what Bitcoin helps you see.
and that's why I think a product like STRC makes sense during the transition, because I look at it as a gateway drug. If the mechanics are solid, and I think they are, there's always room for interpretation, right? We can always shoot holes, whether the DeFi component of it is potentially a loop and going to cause systemic issues to SCRC. Yeah, that was the one I heard yesterday. Um, yeah, it
I
does
mean, my
require.
big beef, and I've written 3 papers on the kind of treasury company just using MicroStrategy. My big beef is that at this juncture, like seeing how quickly the ethos of the Bitcoin community shifted very quickly to grift and ETH style clown show in a matter of 24 months. I just have little faith based on how quickly it went from sound money principles to like, what's my return? Look at how much I'm making. Um, my concern is most
But
of
that's part
what's
of the evolution.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I see the bridge. I don't at all disagree. Like that was paper one. Like here's the bridge.
Yeah,
And then paper two is like, here's the reflexive problem. It's just masking, and it's actually potentially negatively taking all the heavy lift that Bitcoin did for 12 years and throwing it out the window in a matter of 2 years, potentially. Um, because the emergent behaviors of the existing system now are not doing the things that help everybody else realize how broken money is. They're participating along with it. Now, it could bridge it and we could get back. That's where I kind of am like, I don't really know.
well, and I sent you a draft of something I've been kind of messing around with. I still have to refine it a little bit more, but in that I was outlining what would a if I had to somebody asked people have been asking me like, what would a pivot look like today? And so I put some time and thought into it, and I was like, all right, if I had to do a pivot today, what would that look like, and why would it happen? And I think Bitcoin grew from a grassroots effort to this
Hmm.
point. The next stage is going to be a top down.
Hmm.
And I think it has to be a hard pivot, um, for a number of reasons. But I think what we've seen over that 2-year period is this the infrastructure being built to allow
Yep.
that pivot to happen. And now we're just waiting for kind of the fulcrum or the ignition.
Yep.
And for a product like STRC, like STRC becomes solid as soon as Bitcoin starts hitting in a kind of what I rephrase as a reflexive equilibrium. As soon as it hits the point where it just starts perpetually, whether that steady or exponentially starts going up, which is why we're all kind of here, because we know that the scarcity, given supply and demand dynamics, would allow it to at some point demand is going to outpace supply, and it will start increasing pretty steadily, right? And
Mhm.
when that happens, a product like STRC then becomes a conversion mechanism, and it ends up becoming the perpetual floor buyer for Bitcoin. Can almost make an argument that of if you look at it from a transition perspective, STRC basically becomes kind of like the Fed of that transition, um, because the mechanism's that powerful. Um, but scarcity has to return, and I think the only way for scarcity to return is for the government of some sort to make an announcement positioning Bitcoin as pristine collateral, or at least
Well,
giving it a seat at the table.
that's the concern where scarcity doesn't return in a good way, because if too much Bitcoin ends up in too few entities, we're right back at like 2018 with dollars, right? Where we talked about like too few,
Concentration perspective.
yeah, too few hands have control of the money. And so part of now, in fairness, the above average person is not going to do all the self custody, just like they weren't going to go set up a web server and post their own email in 98 or 99. So there is that mechanism where people, our behavior is just give me the money, let me spend it. I don't want to know how it works. I don't need to know how it works. I don't even need to know that it's there.
Yeah,
Right. And
we're
so,
lacking accountability in
yeah,
society as a whole.
yeah, and so if you ask me, like, what's the number one fundamental problem with a developed nation, it's that more so than it's like some other medium to transact with or to create financial value out of. Um, and so we were on this track. We are making a lot of progress to looked like solving that, and maybe we're still on that track, maybe we're not. And so that's my only kind of like, I don't know, because you're really placing that trust in another entity that you don't even know that's what's there, and then you're stacking layers on top of this thing. And historically, in the financial, or sorry, in the traditional financial system, at some point you always hit a break that unwinds a lot of that. So I think that's what with the people that are like negatively or just saying like, hey, what if, on the whole looping thing.
I mean, if you really want to play it out, and I haven't put too much thought into this, the protocol Bitcoin is a forcing function of truth. So, like, I believe when the age of abundance or AI gets
Mhm.
kicked into full gear, monetary value, it's just a generational thing. Like it'll change and it'll morph. I believe Bitcoin, there's a reason the two technologies are hitting this paradigm between monetary and production at the same time. And I believe absolute scarcity, if it can be preserved, right, ultimately will be a controlling feature for AI and
Mhm.
giving it kind of parameters basically to function. And I've even thought about theories. I was like, well, when Bitcoin's halving cycle stops, is that when we hit true abundance, right? And at that point, is the protocol is all monetary value basically for society basically worked out of it? Like we don't need because everything's abundant. We don't need monetary units to transact in. AI is basically providing everything for us, and maybe we're focusing on consciousness or traveling to explore the universe. I
Well,
don't know.
think about the supports that. I mean, if you think about a financial transaction, we might have talked about this before, but what is it we really value in a financial transaction? It's not the units. It's not the money.
The
It's
access.
it's whatever is on the other side. So it might be a book for you, and I value whatever unit we decide. I value the Bitcoin, the satoshis that I get from you, because really, I value this other thing, a shoe or a bat or whatever that I didn't have and the book couldn't get me. But when I took that Bitcoin and added it with something else, I could go get the thing that I valued more. It's
Yeah.
almost like when you go back to those barter examples in the early days, it was like barter never existed because at no point did the sword maker ever need three pairs of shoes at exactly the right time or that the cobbler had them. So it was
Yeah.
always credit. And so, yeah,
Problem is society, we're all suffering from a lack of purpose,
yeah.
right? It's all manufactured. We're being told this is what we're supposed to do in
Hmm.
order to survive or to keep up with the Joneses. It's not, I don't think it's our defined purpose for what we were put here for. And I think that's ultimately what we're trying to solve for. And I
Yeah,
think the evolutionary process, I think Bitcoin and AI together is part of our evolutionary process, separate from religious
yeah.
kind of
Well,
discussions. But
even to your mentioning of consciousness and Myers-Briggs, you get towards that realm
yeah,
because they do some of that testing. You maybe some people do it in high school and they go on a college track, but it's not widely done. But now it's more and more widely done. Um, and I think that some of that is stemming from the technology, some of it is stemming from the money, the Bitcoin side of things, where people have spent more time doing the homework and found out who they were through that process.
yeah. I mean, it's definitely helped me in my thought process and confidence in myself, right? It's been part of my journey and will
Yeah,
continue to be until the day I die.
yeah.
Can't stop it now. It's definitely had a major impact on your life.
Oh yeah, totally.
I put something out like last August. It was just a long post, but it was a series of posts. I think it was like three or four. Um, and it was just, it's amazing. And we talked about it earlier about how once you have this asset and you really start to understand it, and then you put life up against it and look through it as a Bitcoin lens, how
Hmm.
you can really truly see the incentive structure of every party involved.
Right.
Like it just allows, there's a clarity that comes with it. Um, and that's powerful. And it also is kind of like an ace in the back of your pocket too, because not everybody can see it from that perspective. Now, you do run the line of sounding like a crazy person. Um,
Totally. That's what everybody thinks we are.
um, but what we do have is as the distortions in the systems continue to get louder and historical correlations are breaking down,
Mhm.
and we're hitting an acceleration standpoint too. Like it's accelerating now. Um, I mean, back in 2013, 15, I'm assuming that the early Bitcoiners didn't have the understanding around how big of an impact AI was going to make and how it's going to accelerate things. And that's also another important point is I don't think you can't just look at it from a Bitcoin perspective. You also have to look at it from an AI perspective. Like, you have to look at the paradigms together because
Yeah.
they're, which is amazing to see that usually when we get one paradigm shift that's happening, we actually have two. Um, Everybody can see the AI, but they can't see the monetary piece.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, think about like what it takes to settle a transaction instantaneously. Most of the world, most of our systems just aren't. And Warsh talks about that in some of his conversations. Is like the Fed's plumbing can't handle that, but that's at what pace the world needs to go to get people money and commerce moved around. It has to go at the pace of what is now AI, which is and you type in a question 3 years ago to Google, or 4, I guess now, to Google, and you're spend 15 minutes searching for the right answer amidst all the junk.
Yeah.
And you click a link, and then you got to read down 6 paragraphs to realize that's not at all. They just threw some buzzword, some SEO in there, and you're off. So it takes you an hour to find an answer. And now you throw that same question into whatever LLM you want, and you have I mean, it's not perfect, but you have 60 to 80% of exactly what you need and we're looking for right then. And so you can go make a financial transaction faster. Now let's talk about the world where systems do, because API calls, we all think, oh, I hit Uber but there's money that's going back and like, hey, you just had
Yeah.
10,000 calls in 12 minutes. Your bill is, whatever, $3,000. And if you don't pay it, we'll turn your system off. That's the underpinning of our society. So now you have money that can transact, whether it's a crypto or whatever, that can transact at that speed. Like, the world is a different place.
Well, and it could go really good, and it could
And it
also go
could go.
really bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And right now, it looks like the setups for either way.
Yeah. Well, if you look back, so take it spiritual here for a second, like it, the Christian world versus the non-Christian world, or Christian world versus some other religion.
And those parallels map up too. So
All
what's
the way,
yeah,
yeah, and so it's really just the same battle that was happening 5,000 years ago, but we've gone from a religious perspective to an economic system or a nation state, a communist versus a free market, capitalism versus communism,
yeah,
and then
careful with
we
the free market economy.
yeah. And then we've got, uh, Republican versus Democrat, or American versus Russian or Chinese. And so now we're back at that square one again, because Bitcoin functions more like a religious principle legal code that's like if then else,
Yep.
where our money is just kind of like free willy, what does it matter? Debt and
Imagine what can imagine what can happen when we don't have to fight each other, right?
mhm,
And we're not
mhm.
always at odds, and we can provide for our family, and we can just focus on our legacy,
Yep.
right? And we can explore and find what the our higher purpose is, or what the purpose was for us being placed here. Because I think everybody has a unique individual purpose for why they're here. It's just whether they found it or not.
Yeah,
And
totally. I mean, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And think about if your path, if everybody could take 5 years. I mean, in the middle, we had kids. I quit working for a while, built tables and stuff because I just needed to take a break, and I can do it. And it was
that's okay.
hard, but it
Yeah.
was hard, but like, you learn stuff, and it's better than just going and sitting in front of a screen every day.
Think about how much further you're along in your own personal development just for having
Right.
that time. And I look back, and while I was going through it, I was like, um, maybe it was comfortable, but it was still like this kind of sucks. Like, because you really don't feel like you have
You feel
purpose.
unproductive because everybody
Yeah.
else is like, "Oh, you don't have a real job."
And I looked at it, and I'm like, in 5 years, I'm gonna look back and go, this is some of the best time ever spent for a
Mhm,
variety of different reasons. And it's true. Like, I'm happy I had it. Do I want to go back to it? No, but it's made such a impact on my life by having that time to study and dive deeply into what I did, because it's changed the trajectory of my life and where I'm going. It makes me a
mhm,
better father, better husband. Makes me a better worker now.
mhm.
Um, Definitely my opinions and perspectives on how things are going to play out are different than everybody else, but that's
Yeah.
okay.
Well,
Um,
in that, I think the moral kind of root foundational principle in there is it sounds easy to say, "Oh, I didn't work for 5 years." But there's a lot of struggle that's in there, and like, through that struggle, when you get on the other side of it, and kind of the positives that you could take away, that's what makes life more purposeful, when you figure out, like, whatever the struggles that were in that period were, and you kind of like got over those hurdles, and then you get going and use all that. in the future. That to me, that's the real value.
I mean, I'll be very honest with you. Since the age of kind of podcasts, which I never really focused on until I found Bitcoin and started going on this journey, um, I've learned more, say now it's 6 years, in the last 6 years than I did my entire professional or educational.
Mhm.
Like just about politics. I mean, I was a double major, but one of my majors was economics. I learned more about economics, politics,
Yep.
you know, geopolitical, global macro trends than I ever did in the first half. Right.
Mhm.
It's made me a much more well-rounded individual, I think, at least. So
Yeah. Well,
it's
you found the power of a little bit of study
knowledge.
and purpose. Yeah, knowledge,
Yeah.
right?
Um, but yeah, the it's just fascinating times right now. And every day is something new and exciting. I mean, you told me the bond market was going to start making these moves yesterday. I actually was seeing it starting last week, but like it's never a dull moment.
Yeah, which is, I think is good most times, but sometimes you're like, "Oh, can we just get some dull moments?" Uh,
Bitcoin's been a relatively dull moment for the last 5 years, but
it has
it's
the
tested people's. That's actually where you forge your conviction at. I think
yeah.
um, it weeds out the weak people, but also think that this 5 year period has been when there's been prep for potentially what could be a pivot. And I do believe there's something coming of significance where Bitcoin gets elevated to the main stage. Um,
Yeah, we're just at an inflection point with so many different fronts. I mean, l you know
how could it not?
right. You
Eh,
got
But from your
geopolitical, you got
perspective, how could it not? How could
well,
Bitcoin not get a seat at the table?
yeah, I mean, I think that it's just one of those cases where genie's out of the bottle. Like it's not going back in. Um, even if Bitcoin doesn't go to 500,000 or a million or whatever the outrageous numbers are that mathematically you can get to, it's not going away.
But that's more of a certainty than it not going there because what's the solution? Can you
Right.
come up with a solution?
No.
Can How many more options can we get to kick the can down the curb? Like we're running out of options. And what is the hard stop? The hard stop on the current system is integration of AI. And we're
Mhm.
well on our way. We're churning through white collar right now. And we
Mhm.
have to inflate in order to get basically to go after the next level, which is robotics in the blue collar. And at that point, you can't stop it. So we have what, 7 years,
If
maybe?
yeah. In
So,
a hopeful manner, it's 7 and it looks like a manageable, you know, instead of just
so we don't have 20 years.
yeah. Mm-mm.
Okay. And what's the only solution to unwind or transition the system? I don't know any other one other than what I see before me after studying Bitcoin. Like I can't, and the asset people are like, well, Bitcoin's not ready. I'm like, no, the protocol is ready. It can take on as much volume as you want it to.
Mhm.
Um, but it has to come as a store of value first. And from there, you have the layer twos and layers threes, which will allow for the transactionary aspect. And once you get the store of value and it starts building value, then all the innovation happens because there's money can be put behind it
Well,
to solve for it and figure it out.
look at and it's hard to say that the internet was a non-monetary value, but it didn't its purpose was not to transfer money.
Right.
Um, it had a huge economic and monetary value over time. But if you look at the internet and you look at HD, it's TV,
Mhm.
the high definition. And even DVDs. Look how long those were far superior technologies to anything on earth in that sector. It still took, I mean, the internet launched in the 60s, it hit mainstream in 2000. The, you know, a little bit before that, 95, 96, but it didn't really go mainstream until 2000.
But there wasn't a need for it.
Yeah.
Like society, it was a solution, but there wasn't a huge demand for that, or nobody understood what it is. Now there's a need potentially for a solution, and Bitcoin is that solution.
Right, but look how long. So yes, that speeds up, and if you look at the faster treadmills and scale, which is what Matthew Mashinskas and I talked about that you reached out about,
Yep.
those technologies do speed us up. So I do expect Bitcoin to be, but with full hindsight, like look how wonderful those things were, and look how far it took the internet. And then if you look at HDTV, I mean, you could argue is wonderful or whatever, but when you go back and look at a TV from the 90s or a show from the 90s, and then
Yeah.
you look at one, you're like, whoa, how do we watch?
So how the iterations happen in the development across time. Yeah.
Once you get people at least accustomed to not stiff arming Bitcoin and thinking that it's just this bad drug dealer money, like Jamie Dimon used to say, and all these bad things and whatnot, it it will power much more value than anything that we've known, because there's 100 million units inside the one. Wait,
Right.
the best money on earth today is a dollar, and there's only 100 units inside one.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, you've got this thing that can support, theoretically, depending upon the value, 100 million people per one unit. And you got this other thing that can support 100 people, and that's debased 15% a decade. I mean, now it's faster than that, but
Right. On
you know,
average in the historical
yeah.
context.
Um,
Yeah.
that's the like network value kind of deal where you're like, whoa, that's a big deal.
Um,
Yeah.
and that's exciting to see. So
And that's one of the interesting things, and then we can kind of wrap it up for today. But Warsh, and a thing I was listening to where he was talking about specifically about inflation, and they were asking him like, "Hey, yeah, or inflation has been bad. It's past regime, that whole rhetoric, which is true, but um, he said, look, central banking, when you're dealing with central banks and when you are dealing with all this stuff, inflation is a choice, which is a very interesting comment, because how do you realign the world, which is easy to see. There's probably some realignment that needs to happen, and other parts take on certain control and power and military aid to themselves or to others in their region, and that's where we're going with the blocks. But I thought that was a
yeah.
interesting framing. Um, and that inflation makes people move. That inflation makes people that maybe would have just continued to pass on Bitcoin and say, "Hey, I need to check this thing out." Um,
It's a great driver. That's for
yeah,
sure.
yep, yep.
Um, cool. I'm happy we did
So cool.
this.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Well, thanks for coming on, and maybe you can tell everybody, listeners, where they can find you at.
Yeah. Maryland Hodl. You'll pretty much find me exclusively on X, usually taking pot shots when I'm not writing an article and putting it out. So call me an
Awesome.
agitator.
Yeah, well, you've done some good work on there.
I appreciate that.
Number of good articles. Always enjoy reading them. So, thanks for your time, and thanks for coming on today.
Yeah, thanks, Kane.